This is a review of the National 5 quadratic equations homework, and we're using the Pegasus materials to work through the questions that are here. We've got 6 questions, and what we're going to do is we're going to go through these reasonably quickly, and we'll get the solutions for each of them from there. Right then, first question, draw a suitable sketch to solve these equations. Now, quite a strange question, that one there, but let's try and solve them just from the equations that we have here, okay, just now. So what I have there is, I've got x equals 0, okay, and from this part in the bracket, I've got x minus 4 equals 0, so there I've got x equals 4. So what I'd be expecting to see if I was going to just draw a kind of simple graph for this one here, just drawing a graph like this, and what we'll go for is, I'll go for, let's see, that being 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 out to there. Okay, so the values that I've got are a value of x equals 0 and x equals 4, so there we are there, 0. This is the y direction, this is the x direction. I know that when I multiply these two out, I should get an x squared, so let's think about that. So it's going to be x squared minus 4x equals 0, and that's sometimes where the question should start. You would factorise it, then solve it, and what I would do is I would just draw a graph just through here. I've just put a dot there just down at the midpoint between 4 and 0, just at 2, because I know that's where the turning point would be, but I'm not working out that turning point, I'm just showing that that's where I would get my solutions from, x equals 0 and x equals 4. Let's look at part B. Okay, so what I have here is I have a 3-part thing here, so that's going to be a trinomial, and what I'm going to try and do is I'm going to factorise that. Trinomial or a quadratic, we'll call them. Right, so I'm going to try and put it into 2 brackets to solve it. Okay, so these two things here multiply together to get x squared. So it's just x and x that would be there. Here and here, I've got 2 numbers that multiply together to get 12. Okay, so 12 and 1 I could use. I could use 4 and 3, I could use 6 and 2. The only ones out of that pairing that I've spoken about that I can make 8 from will be 6 and 2. So let me put a 2 there and I'll put a 6 there. Right then, so I can see that that sign's positive, so they're both positive or both negative. If that's a positive sign as well, then they're both going to be positive values. From there, similarly what we were doing over this side, I'm going to solve it. So I've got x plus 2 equals 0, so x equals minus 2. From here I've got x plus 6 equals 0, so x equals minus 6. And if I was going to just draw that out again, just the same type of thing. I've got a y direction there. And here what I've got is, I've got my x direction going there. Okay, so let's go for 2, 4, 6, 8. So let's see. So that's going to be minus 2 is going to be here. That one there will be minus 6. And these are the 2 values that I'm just plotting, my roots. So say I just take a value down from there, just coming through here, and coming up from there, coming up through here, and there we go. So with these values here, that'll allow me to solve this graph that would be here, because I've got x is equal to minus 2 and x is equal to minus 6. Okay, so let's see where we could get some marks. So I can see 5 marks are given here. So let's go for 1 mark for getting these 2 correct here, and we'll go for 1 mark for getting the graph drawn and annotated in that way there as well. Okay, and what we'll go for over on this side here, I'll go for 1 mark for factorising correctly, and 1 mark for getting the values of x equals minus 2, x equals minus 6, and then 1 more mark for getting the graph correct as well. Okay, so there's 5 marks that we're given out here. Right, so on to question 2, and we have to solve these quadratic equations algebraically. Right then, so from this one here, I can see that I've got something common between here and here. So what I'll do is I'll take out a common factor. Common factor would be a number and also an x value that I can take out. So I can go for 5x coming out as a common factor. That will leave me with x in there, because 5x times x will give me 5x squared. and in here I'll have 3, and that equals 0. So from this side here I've got 5x equals 0, so x will equal to 0. From here I've got x minus 3 equals 0, so x will equal 3. So that's that solved. Over on the right hand side here I have a trinomial. Normally what we would have there is that should be equal to 0 to try and solve it. And what we'll go for is we'll go and try to factorise it by putting it into 2 brackets. Okay. So what I could use here is 6 and 1. I could use that. I could use 3 and 2, and what it would be is it could be a bit of trial and error, or by any other method that you've been shown how to do this. If you struggle with factorising, check out one of my earlier videos. That was one of the first videos that I had created, and it was on factorising, so have a look at that to try and help you out. Right then, so what I'm going to look at here is I'm going to look at 3x and 2x. 3x times 2x gives me 6x squared, and I've got a 3 to slot in here somewhere, so if I slot the 3 in here and a 1 in there, looking at the signs, that times that will give me 9, that times that will give me 2x, 9x and 2x. So if I make that one that multiplies out the largest minus, and that one there a plus, that should be it factorised. So from here I can see that I've got 3x plus 1 equals 0, and from this side here I've got 2x minus 3 equals 0. Okay, so 3x is equal to minus 1, but taking the 1 over to the other side, so x is equal to minus a third. And on this side here, first thing I'll move over will be the minus 3 going to that side, becomes a positive, and x over there is x is equal to 3 over 2. So that'll be that one, solved as well. Right, let's see the marks we'll get for this. So first one, what we'll do is we'll get a mark for taking out the common factor, another mark for getting our solutions there. I'll go for 1 mark for factorising this one out, 1 mark for each of these. Okay, so that's out of 5 marks. Right, let's look at question 3. Right, question 3, and what we have here is we've got to solve this equation. Okay, 3x squared minus 3x minus 5 equals 0, giving our answer correct to 2 decimal places. So what we'll be looking at is using the quadratic formula for that, and I would just look up my formula list and I would find that formula there. So what we've got is we've got x is equal to minus b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac, that's all over 2a. Okay, so that's the formula, what we're going to use there. Right then, so the equation that we have is this one here. So the values that I'm going to be placing into this equation will be, the a value will be the coefficient of x squared, so that will be 3. The b value will be the coefficient of x, and that will be minus 3. The c value is the numerical term we have left there, so that's going to be minus 5, that's going to be there. Right, so let's go and substitute in. So what I've got is minus 3 coming in there, so minus 3 will just give me a positive 3, and that'll be plus or minus the square root of, and that's going to be minus 3 squared, minus 4 times the a value, which is 3, times c value, which is minus 5, and that will all be divided by 2 times 3, the a value. Right then, so let's just sort this root sign out. So what we've got is we've got 9 there, so minus 3 times minus 3 is 9, and when I multiply this together there, I'm going to get a plus 60 in there. So be very careful of the signs that you've got, and make sure you've got that value worked out correctly there. Right then, so we've got 3 plus or minus the square root of 69 all over 6. And from there, what I've got is I've got 2 solutions, because I've got a plus and a minus there. So the first solution that I've got is x is going to be equal to 3 plus the square root of 69 all over 6. Over this way here, I've got x is equal to 3 minus the square root 69 all over 6. What I can do first of all is I can work out the top line there, 3 plus root 69, which should give me 11.3066, and that's all going to be divided by 6. Over on this side here, if I just do the same thing again, it would be minus 5.3066, and that's all divided by 6. When I divide that out, what I should get is 1.88. Okay, and what I should get over this side here will be x is equal to minus 0.88. So there's my two answers, and there are two decimal places. Okay, so that's the way I could work that one out at first. The kind of other way I could do that, if I can show you on the calculator here, let's see, put it here, is that if I use the fraction mode, I could go for fraction mode there. I could go for 3 plus root 69. Okay, then move down to the bottom, divide that by 6, so that looks exactly the same as that. Press the equals button, get this answer, and press the SD button, and that should take me straight to the answer there. And then I just need to go back up and replace the plus with the minus, just subtracting. That should give me the answer for the other root that's over here. So there are the two ways I can do it. I can work it out on the top, but be very careful how you work that out and make sure that you arrive at the correct answer that's there. Right, let's look at how we'll mark this one for 4 marks. Let's get 1 mark for substituting incorrectly. So that'll be 1 mark for up here, 1 mark for getting this part here. Remember that bit in there is called the discriminant, so I'll be getting the discriminant correct, and the next value I'll go for will be this one here, and finally the rounded values that we've got. Okay. Normally what I would do is I would write out the full value here before I round it, and I would advise you to do that one there before you round your answer. So that's out of 4 marks that's there. Looking at the next question, question 4. What we've got is to solve the equation 4x bracket x minus 2 is equal to 7, okay? And giving your answer correct to 1 decimal place. Now this is a bit different from what you've seen before. What I'll have to do is I'll need to multiply this bracket out, gather the 7 over on the left hand side, make it equal to 0, so I can go ahead and solve that. Right, let's go ahead and do that. So let's go for, that'll be 4x squared, that'll be minus 8x, and I've got that equal to 7. Grab the 7 and take it over to this side. That'll become minus 7. From there what I can do is I can use the quadratic formula to work this out, and my a value is going to be equal to 4, b value will be minus 8, and c value minus 7. Okay, so remember it's just the coefficients that we take when they're in order, as they are there. So using the quadratic formula, will be minus b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Remember that's in your formula list, so you'll be able to find it there. The question doesn't usually ask you to use a quadratic formula, you just need to pick that up from the question when it's a quadratic and it's saying something like it's to 1 or 2 decimal places for that one. Right, let's substitute our values in and see how we go from there. So I've got minus 8, so I'll just put it in as that this time round, okay? Plus or minus the square root of, that will be minus 8 squared minus 4 times the a value, which is 4, times the c value, which is minus 7, all divided by 2 times the e value, which is a 4 that's there. Okay. What we'll then do is we'll work out what's inside the square root. So I've got an 8 here, plus or minus, the square root of, that's going to be 64. I've got 2 minuses that are multiplying together, or 2 negatives. That's going to give me a positive answer. So that'll be plus, and that's going to be 4 times 4 is 16, and 16 times 7 will give me 112. That's all over 8. Right, so let's just write that out one more time, just to gather this together here. So that's going to be 176, okay? all divided by 8. Now I'm going to split it into two solutions. So my x is going to be equal to 8 plus square root of 176 all over 8. And from here I've got x is equal to 8 minus square root of 176 all over 8. Okay, same as I did the last time, I can work it out two ways as shown on the calculator. I can work the top out, that will give me over 8. Okay, and I'm going to work out the answer to that one. So I've got x is equal to 2.7, that will be to one decimal place as we're asked for. And for this part here, what I have is minus 5.266, that'll all be divided by 8. And again here my x value is going to be minus 0.7, going to round that one, and that'll be to one decimal place. Okay. Let's look at the answers for the marks for this one here. So I'm going to get 1 mark for creating that quadratic equation form there with the equaling 0. I'll get 1 mark for substituting into the formula. I'm going to go for 1 mark for getting the discriminant correct. Again, 1 mark for this line here, and the final mark for making sure I round it correctly. And that will be 5 marks for this question. Right, so let's have a look at this one here. So what we've got is we've got a graph. It's a parabola. It's y is equal to 16 plus 6x minus x squared. So it's a minus x squared, so that's a maximum. So I can see that that's a maximum there. And I have to find the coordinates a, b, c and d. Right then, so let's go ahead. Let's find the roots first of all, okay? So if I find the roots, that will give me the values for a and b first of all. Okay? So for the roots, remember that's the x-intercept, we'll let y equal 0 because the y coordinate is going to be 0. Right then, so let's go for 0. Okay, so I've got 0. 16 plus 6x minus x squared there. What I can do from that one there is we can then factorise that. You can rearrange it if that suits you better, or you can just factorise it straight from the format that it's like here. So that'll be an 8 there, 2 here, that'll give me the 16, and I should have an x and an x. One of them will be negative. And if that's going to be the positive, then the biggest one that multiplies out, which will be the 8 times the x, should be the positive. And that should work out for us there. From there I can see that I've got 8 minus x equals 0. Take an x over to that side, so x equals 8. I've got 2 plus x equals 0, so x equals 2. So there's going to be my 2 values. So let's see, so what we've got, that's a minus 2 there, isn't it? That's a minus 2. Okay. Right, so this coordinate here will be minus 2 and 0. This coordinate here will be 8 and 0. And if I look at the diagram, then that should be my coordinate for A because it's the furthest left coordinate. And that one there will be my value for B. So that's me got the A and B so far. Right, so let's try and work out our turning point. Okay, turning point will be next. Turning point will be D. Let's go for that one. For D, what I'm going to do is I'm going to work out the axis of symmetry. And what I'm going to do for that is I'm going to add the two x values. So 8 plus minus 2 divided by 2. So that's going to give me 6 divided by 2, which gives me 3. So x equals 3. It's going to be my axis of symmetry, or the equation of the axis of symmetry. I'll then substitute x equals 3 into the y equals equation. So y equals 16 minus 6x minus x squared. Right, let's put a 3 in there. So I've got 16 minus 6 times 3 minus 3 squared. Okay, so I've got 16 minus 18, and that's going to be minus 9. That's there. And just see, so that's going to be, should be right there again. Just give me a minute to check. that's a positive sign there. I must be getting tired just now. Okay, so let's get a positive in there, positive in there, positive in there. So that's going to give me a value of, so it's going to be 25 that's going to appear there. Okay, so what I have there is the coordinates of D is going to be value of 3 from X and 25 here from the Y coordinate. Okay, it's getting a wee bit late. A couple of wee mistakes starting to kind of creep in there. Right, let's get the y-intercept. Okay, for the y-intercept. Right, I know that for the y-intercept, my x-coordinate for C is going to be equal to 0. And I'll just substitute that in there. So y is equal to 16 plus 6x minus x squared. Hopefully got that right there. 16 plus 6 times 0 minus 0 squared. That should give me an answer of 0 coming out of there. Y equals 16. So the coordinate for C is going to be equal to 0, 16. Okay, let's see where we're going to get our 6 marks for this one here. Let's go for the first mark for factorising. Okay, the next mark for getting both A and B. I'll take 1 mark for getting the axis of symmetry and a mark for getting D. Okay, I'll go for 1 mark for, let's go for, I'm going to say substituting x equals 0 into this equation here, and from there getting our C equals 0, 16. So that'll be our 6 marks given there. Okay, on to the last question. Let's get to that one. Right then, so last question here, we'll use the discriminant to determine the nature of the roots of these quadratic equations. So remember, the discriminant is just inside the quadratic formula. It's underneath the square root, and that's what we're going to use here, and that allows us to determine the nature of the roots, if roots exist or if they don't, if there's 1 or 2 roots or none. Right, so let's go ahead and we'll work out the discriminant. Remember, the discriminant is b squared minus 4ac. Okay, and we're going to evaluate that and work out what our values are. In here, I can see that a is equal to 1, b is equal to minus 6, c is equal to 8. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the discriminant. And what we'll do is we'll go for b squared minus 4ac, b squared, which will be minus 6 squared, minus 4 times the a value, which is 1, c is 8. And what I want to do is I want to evaluate this to see of what I'm going to get out. So I've got a 4. I've got a 4 coming out. So for that one there, what I'd say is that since b squared minus 4ac is greater than 0, so it's a bigger number than 0, this one here is a positive number, there are 2 real and distinct roots present. Okay, so that's me completed that question there. So important bits here are making sure that you state that since b squared minus 4ac is whether it's greater than 0, equal to 0 or less than 0, in this case it's greater than 0, and that there are 2 real and distinct roots. Okay. For the last part, here we go. So I'll go for my a value being equal to 4, b value being equal to 1, and c equal to 3, using the discriminant. We'll go for b squared minus 4ac, and we've got 1 squared minus 4 times 3. So what we've got is we've got 1, and that's going to be minus 48, and that'll give me minus 47. Negative number, less than 0, so since b squared minus 4ac is less than 0, there are no real roots, or no real roots exist. That's it, complete. Right, so the total of the homework here is worth 30 marks. Let's look at where the marks come for question 6. So let's go for 1 mark for getting evaluating the discriminant down to get 4. 1 mark for making that statement there, and a final mark for getting there are 2 real and distinct roots. For the next part, what we'll go for is, let's see, I'll go for 1 mark for getting the minus 47. I've only got 1 mark to play with here, so what I'll do is, if that's less than 0, I'll just put that all together there. Okay, so that's the 5 marks for the last question. Okay, hopefully this has helped you with the quadratic equations and shown you maybe some different ways of working it through. If your teacher's taught you a different way of doing it, I would follow their method definitely. And hopefully this has helped you with quadratics.